Now here's the basis for the front end kit. The inner fenders I have and they're in good shape. I'm going to reuse those. I probably could have reused the front grille support, but all things considered is fairly cheap enough. I do have to take a look and see which direction it goes. Here's the headlight panel and then front roll pan. We're not doing a front bumper, so I'm gonna end up cutting off the frame horns, and then this is gonna bolt up in line with the fenders here and give us a nice smooth front. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm not putting the parking lights. This is what these pucks are for. I'll probably just leave those indented. We'll see what the customer says. I might be able to make a small panel that fits over that. But in the headlight or in the grille, I'm gonna do the turn signals in the headlight, like a halo basically. Just kind of clean up the front end and make that grille look like it's floating. Check the laws and everything. I know this far back you were not required to have a side marker light. You just have to have the front. It's like 71, 72 that changed. But if I wanted to, I could go so far as to put like an LED side marker in here. If the customer wants me to do that, I can do that easy enough. But all this should go together pretty easy. And again, once I get everything together and in primer, all this will start looking like a vehicle again. And then for the hood, we're gonna end up doing not the front clip, but just the hood is gonna be a flip up hood. So part 2 of my giant Lego kit. All right, so I've gotten a start on the front clip. So we've got the headlight panel here. This is where the actual grille bolts to. We've got the front roll pan, and we've got the fender started. I've got the inner fenders that I still have to trim out for the suspension, and I'm waiting on this guy here. This is gonna hold me up a little bit. I might have to order one from somewhere else. So the other thing, once I get kind of mocked up, I'm gonna have to cut the front frame horns off because again, we're doing a roll pan, not a front bumper. So I'm gonna mock up the other one that I have, kind of give me an idea of where I need to trim those off and take care of that. I might, if there's enough room, put one more mini cross member in the front, just like a crash bar, but that is not required by any means. That would just be something extra that I do. So taking a look at different options for a radiator, and I'm gonna be looking at, obviously here's where my top hose is gonna go, and then my lower hose comes out, I believe, nope, where does my lower hose come out at? Okay, my lower hose actually comes out right under here. So I'm gonna have to try and find one that fits very specifically. So I'm gonna be looking for a driver's side lower and a center upper so I can get things where they need to go. I'm gonna be changing that intake, and then pretty soon here, we're gonna do some test fitting of the sniper unit. But right now I'm still working on the body. All right, we're gonna take a break on the rear end, start working on the front a little bit while I'm doing some body work back there and waiting for another set of hands. Starting at the front, everything's gonna go off the radiator core support. It's one of those pieces I'd planned on using from the other vehicle, but it's just chewed up enough. So you know what, just do it new. So I've got that piece there, and then you have the headlight panel here, outer fender, you got the inner fender right there, you got the front. This one's going to be a roll pan, otherwise it's going to be like a gravel pan. And then, then you have all the hood and everything. So one of the issues I'm having with the inner fender, I think I'd mentioned before, is that the new suspension is in the way. So I'm going to mock it all up, figure out how much I have to trim out to ensure that I've got articulation in the suspension. But for now, I can start mocking up what I have. So again, we've got this here. I've got the mount kit for that. We'll get the headlight panel up, and then we'll start putting the fender up. One of the issues that I have, I'm gonna have to see how everything goes. Again, the front end of these are gonna have to get knocked off because we're doing a roll pan. Usually these are gonna stick through, and then that's what the front bumper bolts to. Somewhere around here, I believe, I still have the old one. Save all your parts, save all your parts. And I'm not entirely sure where that one has made it off to at the moment. Boy, I hope I didn't leave it outside and somebody decided they wanted it more than I did. That would be really unfortunate. Either that or it's in the other garage. But again, normally you'd see a couple notches in the bottom that sticks through. So once I get everything else done up, I'll take my line from where that roll pan bolts up to each fender. I'll know where I'm coming across, give myself a little bit of gap there, and then I might put a little piece of metal there just for like a crash bar or whatnot, because the roll pan is just going to be cosmetic at that point. But we will start with mocking up the front end. We are having a block sanding party. Well, not quite block sanding yet, but I've got the sheet metal is all here, various stages of assembly. They're getting it down so I can finish getting this thing in primer and then start getting it prepped for paint. I still have to rebuild the doors yet, and I've got to install the fuel tank, and I got to finish putting the motor together. I've got a carb on it for the moment for mock-up, but I do have a Sniper fuel injection kit for it. So hopefully it's Tuesday afternoon. Hopefully by the end of the week, this thing starts looking like a truck again. Yeah, so these videos are gonna be really fun to edit. I'm kind of bouncing around all over the place. So I'm still working on the body work, getting some sanding done, and I'm working on some chassis work so I can start actually assembling everything. I'm running way out of time between being down for about a month with a shoulder issue, being down for a little bit for a finger issue, kind of had some health issues kick up, and had, you know, some part availability kick up, and I'm still waiting on parts to come in. I'm got about 2.5 weeks to get this thing finished. So not a lose the shop thing, but definitely putting a question on my ability to build, and it's unfortunate for that, but sometimes stuff just happens. But where I'm at today, so I'm still working on getting everything sanded down so I can get this thing fully into primer. I've got a little bit of body work to do. I did get a filler panel for the fuel fill. I still got to mock up and line up this particular door. I still got to get the inner fenders cut. But where I'm at right now is getting the frame set to accept the front roll pan. So I'm marking out, I've got everything kind of fabbed up where it's supposed to go. So I've got my straight edge here, and it's marking what the outside of the fender is, and that's going to obviously match with the inside of that. So what I'm going to do is mark where that is, and then give myself maybe a 1/16 of an inch. I wouldn't think I need to go as far as a quarter. You want some room for play because everything's going to kind of come and go. I don't want that scratching and squeaking on the front. So I might even go as much as a 1/4 inch, just to give me some play. I was thinking about putting another cross member in, just kind of have a crash bar, but with where I'm going to cut it, this main cross member is still here, and it will still have the nubs to help a little bit, so I don't think I'm going to do that. Not required by any means, just something I was thinking of on my own. So, but I just got to obviously take my weight off of it, because that flexes things a little bit. Get tied up, grab my tape, mark the edge, and then get my not my Sawzall, my reciprocating saw. There we go, I lost the word for a moment. Get that out, hack those off, and then I can mock up that front roll pan. So once I get everything sanded down and ready for primer, and we're doing the engine compartment black, we're doing everything else body color. Once I get that kind of figured out, then everything's going to come back off again so I can finish getting it ready for the primer. When I do that, then I'm going to pull the engine back out because I've got some seals and some new hardware for it, and I need to switch. That's the AOD-E transmission there, and I need to put in, hiding over here somewhere, I've got my 4R70, so a little bit different style. I think I've gone into that already. So the motor does have to come out one more time, and then when I put it back in, I do need to line it up. I'm still about 1 inch back of where I want to be. Once I have that done, then I can figure out the motor mounts. Once I have the angle of the engine and transmission dialed in, then I can burn in my rear end, then I can get it measured for a drive shaft. Knock on wood, I'll be able to do that in like 2 days. A lot easier in some of the shows, you got more than one guy doing it. I'm kind of on my lonesome here, so doing what I can. We'll see how it goes. All right, so I got the front horns cut off,
And I've just got a couple bolts in for mock-up of this front pan. Again, that was really smooth everything out. Taking a look up underneath, if I can get the camera up in there. We do have plenty of space between the front of that and the roll pan, so no chance of contact and making noise, but it is still ahead of this cross member here, so there is a little bit of crash protection before you get into the core support should something happen. Taking a look at the next part. So this side lines up okay. You got the pan here. Let's see if I can bring this out a little bit. So you got the headlight panel here. This is where the grille actually bolts to. Normally you would have a set of parking lights here. We're not putting those in. Instead, we are going to be putting the turn signal into the headlight itself to give it kind of a floating grille look. When you take a look into here, there's a little bit of gap here, but not too bad. Once I bolt it together, that should cinch up just fine. We got a little gap here I want to take a look at. There may be a little bit of hammer and dolly work. We're coming to this side. We've got a lot bigger issue here. So we take a look at this headlight pan. This sits flush. This is out a little bit. So I need to see what's going on there because that's sticking out. It's pushing onto here, which is pushing this away a little bit. That pan is also, instead of riding on the outside of this ridge, it's on the inside. So I've got to figure out what's going on here. And taking a look here, I've got a much larger gap. And I kind of noticed this when I was doing the mock-up in the other shop before I brought it over to the truck itself. So again, that might be something as simple as a bit of hammer and dolly work to straighten it out. Get camera on it, but we'll see. But at the moment, again, as we step back, we are starting to look more and more like a truck. All right, getting to the next level. I've got most of the body panels on the truck. I'm still working on getting some alignment and stuff done. My customers are going to show up today, and we're going to go over a couple of decisions, and we're going to do a paint sample. So I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. I am not a painter. The full paint job I'm going to have farmed out. I'm going to paint the test panel, just give an idea as far as how many coats, what we're doing to clean all that up. So I'll show you what I'm doing and then go from there. So to start with, we've got our color, which nice. I forgot I'd pop the lid. That's great. So we've got the color, and per instructions, we're going to do 2-to-1 color to reducer. The reducer makes it easier to spray. And then they give you the option some hardener for setup time, which I'm not going to do for this, but we'll take a look at different options. That is a very pretty color running all over the ground. So my gun that I'm using, pardon the reach, is a 20 ounce, excuse me, a 20 ounce gun. So the mixture is going to be 2-to-1. So I'm going to do the full 20 ounce total. So if we do the 2-to-1, if I do 20 ounces, it wants another 10, which is going to take me to 30 ounce, which my cup doesn't hold. So if we do 10 ounces of color and 5 ounces, that will take you to the about 15 ounce. The other thing you can do is right here is 2-to-1 mixture, so you don't have to worry about ounces. You can just do that there. So I'm going to play around and see what I can do and show you that when I'm done, because I will need 2 hands with this. All right, so with the 2-to-1, pour the color up to the 4, and then fill it with the reducer to the 4. Get a real good mix. The hard part with this is being metallic. One, it's going to spray a little thicker just because of the metal flakes in it that give you that reflective image, or not image, the kind of reflective particles. And then the other thing that we're going to do is I've got my test panel, half with primer and then half with a primer aluminum. So we're going to see how that affects the final color, see what the customer likes. The gun I'm using is just a standard Harbor Freight 20 ounce gun. I'm not a professional painter. I'm not going to spend a bunch of money on a gun that I'm not going to use all of it. If you know what you're doing, you can use any gun to do a paint job. You just have to be good and know your gun well. The better painter you are, the more features and functions you can use, the way that I understand it. But I have seen people do great paint jobs with these. High volume, low pressure works for me because I got my itty bitty tank. The one thing I'll have to watch for is when I run out of air, that this thing doesn't kind of spit color out. Again, for a sample, I'm not really worried about it. When I was painting my Fairlane a couple years ago, I did have moments where I had to stop, let the compressor catch up. So I've got everything set up. I'm gonna pour a little bit in, and I'm gonna do a couple test sprays on a panel here just to make sure I like my pattern, and we'll go make whatever adjustments we need. This one did come with a regulator, and I'm running it at right around 20 pounds of pressure. The gun will run between 15 and 45 according to the information. So we'll see what I can do with what I have and make the adjustments I need to. All right, so here's a quick sample board. This is with 3 coats. The one on the left is just primer. The one on the right has got a silver backing to it. So this is what it looks like in shadow. It's a little bit hard to see, but this is what it looks like. So the silver almost looks darker in the sunlight, at least to me in my eyes. So it kind of flips through the different reflections on it. And when you get into the shade, it almost looks lighter. So we'll see what kind of shade that he's like. And again, this is 3 coats on it, which I think is a pretty decent color. Some adjustments on the gun is gonna be between your air pressure and your spray pattern. I don't know enough about them to teach anybody, but I wanted to try and get a good pattern with a good fan, because when you're painting for real, you want to have about a 50% overlap. Spray paint, you got like a cone like that. It's really hard to get that overlap in. You get a nice big fan, it's a lot easier to track where you're going and get the coverage that you want. Pulling a half trigger is just going to come out with air. Pulling all the way is going to get you your color, and I don't know if you can see the fan there. So it gives you a little bit, again, when you're tracking the actual paint, about 8 to 10 inches away. You want to be able to have a nice overlap to get your coverage. So I'm still kind of learning painting myself, getting the hang of it. The problem that I have is my hands shake, and then it's really hard for me to lay it straight. So I got some nerve stuff. So like I said, regular color where you're not so much dependent on how it lays, you just need the coverage. I do okay on. But with metallic, what gives it that kind of sparkly reflective is there's actually metal in there, and you want that to lay a common way, so when you're viewing down. So if your metallic pattern goes like that, it's really easy to see. When you have a standard color, standard gloss color, you don't really see as much of that waviness. But with that metallic in there, it's a lot easier to pick up. So again, something like this, probably not gonna be me that paints it. But stepping back over to the truck, I've got to do some more work. I'm setting up gaps and everything. This one here, we're doing the flip nose, so I've got to really work on the hood, but finish getting everything bolted down. And again, working on gaps. Finish getting this sanded, a little more body work on there. I did get the filler panel for the fuel fill, so I've got to work on that guy a little bit. I do have the welder finally hooked up, so I can be able to tack that in. I've got a couple smaller pieces. Like here, the badges that I got are for a different hood. So I'm gonna fill these in, make a template so I can drill out for the new hood bling. Coming around, I already started sanding the coat off of this fender. You know, we'll get a nice primer on it and do some backfilling with some filler. I just started doing some sand on this one. I'll probably get the electric sander to get the coating off. And then here I've been using the block sander with, I think I've got 320 on there now, just kind of knock off the high spots. And again, when you're doing this, you want to get it laser straight. So what you want is to sand this way, because if you sand this way, you're going to create a ridge at the end. If you sand this way, and I kind of put a little pressure on the back side, I don't know if you're supposed to or not, but that gives you a nice lead and follow. Cross hatch is the way to go. So I'm going to get this smoothed out, and then I will get some guide coat, that's what I'm looking for, and we'll see where all the high spots are, or the low spots, and see what I need to do to clean it up. Again, I've said this before, not a show truck. It's not going to be laser straight. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be a good daily driver. Again, if you want it perfect, then we're talking a whole nother year and another 20 grand to get absolute show car perfection. That's not what the guy wants. It's not what he wants to pay for. He wants something that he can drive and not really worry about. And that's what we're after. So not as fast as I've been wanting it to go, but at least it looks like a truck again. All right, so having a couple setbacks with time frame and supply issues, stuff like that. We're getting back on the 53. Right now I'm trying to secure up the cab itself, and I'm having some issues with the hardware. There's not a lot of real good documents or guidelines or anything. I'll show you the kit I have, and I'll crawl underneath the vehicle and have you see what I'm actually working on, and then we'll go from there. So this is the kit that I got from LMC, and it's pretty common for most of the companies that offer these parts. So they talk about having an upper cup, a lower cup, and then you've got all the miscellaneous hardware. There's one pack here that's for the radiator support. I know that these 4 little rubbers and these 2 are for the rear cab, and I'm trying to figure out the front cab. Now, front cab is giving me 4 bolts, and the rear cab is giving me 2, so I'm pretty sure the longer ones are the ones for the rear cab, but we'll get into that. But they're not really giving me any real idea as far as the order and the procedure for putting the cab hardware through. So I'm taking a look with what they give me. So we've got the upper plate here. Austin, you want to go ahead and open this for me real quick, please? So we've got the upper plate. We've got a larger bushing, a smaller bushing. We've got 2 longer bolts, 2 shorter bolts, and then we've got this big piece here. Now, I would say by what makes sense to me with the order, get this through, I would say start with the upper cab. You want to grab that? Start with the upper cup, and then you've got the rubber here, which would fit pretty snugly into there. And then we've got the lower one, which fits fairly snugly into there, and we've got that rubber which fits fairly snugly into there. That all seems to make sense, and I'm going to assume this is going to grab the frame. You know, the frame will run through it. We'll see when I get actually underneath there and what's there. What I'm not as convinced about is what to do with the rest of the pieces. So my guess, and it's just strictly a guess, is this piece comes up through the cab, or from the top of the cab, and that's basically like a washer. The cab sits here, gets sandwiched through all this, and then the bolt comes down through the frame. Or it's the other way around. This stays up top, and then the washer goes down below. I can't imagine that's the case, but I can't imagine either way. So I'm a little bit lost. So I'm going to crawl up underneath the cab and see if there's any clue as to what kind of order that we're looking at. So here I've got the pre-packed kit. And then taking a look, this is going to be where the upper hardware comes through. So again, I'm not sure. Do I just get a washer to fill that? And then when we're coming up underneath, see if I can get a good enough shot crawling around here. So we've got this piece here. So I'm wondering if that part just stays, because that looks really similar to what that upper plate looks like. And then we've got the actual frame horn itself. And then coming up underneath is really not a good shot for it. Let's see if I can. Nope. Trying to get some light here. But coming up underneath, that's what I'm looking at. So again, I'm wondering if that one piece is just meant to saddle around the frame, and then that giant washer comes down here. So I think that's how I'm going to mock it up, and we'll see. As far as the back end goes, you've got this piece here, which comes up into the cab, and then you've got the horns coming off the frame, and it's got to be lifted enough for this bolt to line up here. And then these are the other smaller rubbers that was in that kit. So I'm not sure about taking the upper part off, because that feels pretty solid to me, but we'll see. Again, I'm way far behind in the project, unfortunately. but I'm still kind of in mock-up. This cab is going to end up coming off completely again, so I can get everything done on the underside, get some of the floor pieces taken care of if I need to, get it recoated and everything before I paint. And obviously the frame needs a little bit more work before I'm completely done with it. So I am unfortunately still in mock-up, but we are getting there a little bit at a time. All right, so getting up underneath. Again, underneath this is going to be that smaller rubber. You got this plate, you got the upper rubber, and that other plate is a weldable replacement if need be for the lower cup. So getting over into the driver's side. Same thing, and you can kind of see that cup right there. So that part is fine. I've got the bolts just kind of loosely in. The big question is that plate. Where does that go? So right now that's just like that. I might get like a bigger fender washer for there and leave that plate underneath for even distribution. Now the next part is to get the rear end up and get those other cab mounts, the rear cab mount lined up and in place. So the cab mount itself is a giant C. We've got these rubbers that go into there that I'm not going to worry about. And then I've got these pieces here that I need to see where they go because I don't see anything down there right now. So there were some very small changes in these vehicles between the 3, 4, and 5. And that may be one of them. But I'll get up underneath there and see if I can get a little better idea. All right, so again, we've got the ones up front. And then we've got the one in back. Again, for just mock-up, getting everything set up. Where distances, where gaps are, everything like that. So looking at here, we've got our gap here, we've got our gap here. That rubber looks like it's got something that fits right here into the back of that housing that this arm rides in. So again, when I get the cab off for final paint and body prep, I'll be able to replace those. But right now we actually have finally the cab sitting at height, so I can use that to mock up the rest of my stuff. So took too long to get to this point, but we're finally here. I can work on the door swing a little bit, and I can work on some of the front end fitment. So next step in the puzzle. All right, I'll show you what progress I have since the last update. We will go back and double check our list and see where we're going from here. So I've got most of the body assembled. I still have to disassemble the driver's door to prep for paint. I've got the new wheels and tires that we're running. I did get the rear brakes mocked up, so be pretty comparable all the way around. Got the rear end welded up into place. So got that on. It actually rolls under its own power since I get the alignment down there. Not under its own power, but it does roll, you know, sit and roll now. Doing a little bit of mock-up left on the bed, starting to get it in the primer. Got some more body work that I'm working on. So mostly it's going to be a block standing party. The worst part's going to be getting this grill into shape. There's not a lot of issues with it, but the ones that they have are going to be kind of interesting to work out. And then there's one spot right here. I don't know if you can see in the camera, but there's a little bit of a dimple right here, which is one affecting how the fender sits here, and it does affect how the door sits. So I'm going to try and get on the inside of there with a body die, straighten that up just a little bit. Coming around, we have the interior pieces. So we're going black on the headliner and the floor and the main carpeted areas. And then we're going to be going tan on the seat and the door cards. Now the interesting thing is this particular seat is from a late 80s Chevy pickup. Nice square frame, bolts right in, but the interesting part, so we come back over here.
the door card for the 55, 53, 54, 55, and the carpet that they used, or the fabric they used for the seat kit, are identical, so we're not going to have any issues there. Coming through, I did get the steering column mocked in. I've still got a little bit of work to do here. It's going to be a vinyl headliner. I'll pull that out before paint, obviously. And the AC kit, I get this in here. Apologize for the motion sickness with the camera. Oh, I've got the doors ratcheted closed so I get the strikers done. But if I'm seeing this correctly, showing my light here, I am looking like this. If I'm seeing this correctly, the way this AC kit goes, we maintain the functionality of that air vent, which is something the customer's really wanting to keep if we could. So most of my time has been body work lately, but we'll get it cleaned up. Still waiting on my welder to get that tacked in. And then the roll pan, when I had ordered up the bed, it came with these pieces, these little filler pieces already welded on. So I ended up having to drill out those tack welds. Thankfully it wasn't too bad at all, because the roll pan that we're using already has them as part of it. So I went ahead and took care of that. So block sand, I've got this side of the bed pretty dang close. I've got to use my guide coat. Guide coat there's two different versions of it. There's an aerosol and there's a powder. I like the powder a little bit better. Teach their own. Basically with the guide coat, it's like a black charcoal almost. Got a little applicator. You wipe it on, and then what happens is when you get your sanding block, you start doing your crosshatch, it'll reveal any low spots. So I've got, this side of the bed just about finished. I've got to do a little bit of work on this side, and then I've got a few panels. Once I get the roll pan tacked in, then the bed will essentially be ready for paint. I'm probably going to, on the inside of the head panel, there's actually two threaded washes here that I'll have to drill out. There's actually marks in there. You can't really see them, but there's a mark in there to drill out and bolt that together. And then I'll line up this flange here, and I'll probably rivet about 4 or 5 places up that flange just to lock that together. You can see a little better on this one that I don't quite have married up all the way yet. So that flange will have to seat all the way up against this rail. Then yeah, you can see the threaded bosses there, but eventually I'll get all that pulled together and locked into place. And then I'll be able to just unbolt the 8 bed frame bolts, take it off as a unit, and get it over to paint. So that's where I'm at right now. So we're back on the 53, got an early morning start, not quite 8 o'clock yet. Show you where I'm at right now. So for the most part, I've got the body assembled. I've got a little bit of issue with some gaps. I'll get into that. This side here, I'm having a little bit of issue with the attachment and the sealing of this particular corner. I'll get into that. Being aftermarket repurposed or reproduced, excuse me, some of the gaps don't quite line up the way that I want them to, so I'll do a little bit of work on that. Doors are on. The driver's side is fairly close. I'll work on that a little bit. I still have the new latches to put in, but that's a bolt-in scenario. You trim a little bit here, but I can do that after paint. Dash is almost prepped.
We've got the steering column. I'll probably pull that out and I'll paint that separately. Bed is assembled. I've got a little bit of work to do here. I've talked about in other videos to get that done, but the fenders are on. I've got all the cross members are where they need to be. I've got some filler panels, just have the bed pretty much where and how it's gonna sit. I've got the lower brace in on these guys. I've still got to put the lower brace in up front. The rear end is welded in. I've got a little bit of work to do on that cross member to get that to fit the way that I want it to, but the rear end is essentially done. The last piece I have is a panhard bar. I'll do that once all the paint and everything is finished. Make sure I'm dead center where I want to be before I get that welded in. Still working on the engine. Again, I've got another engine I'm going to use, but I can still use this one for mock-up and getting my engine mounts and everything where I want them to be. But again, 351 Windsor and the 4R70. So the only real things I have left in the body, I've got to finish stripping out the doors for paint, and then I've got to get the brackets for the running boards to get them in, and then I've got a little bit of work to do left on the grill. But otherwise, the goal is by the end of the week to have the bodywork finished. So this is the E-coat for the brand new fender. That's a little electroplating that they put on to protect it. So you scuff it up, shoot it, and then do a little bit of bodywork you have to do there. I finally have the hood about finished. I'm in the block sand part. Again, we talked about that a little bit. It's tinted primer or tinted, covering you put on to show where your low spots are. I did start this a little bit early this morning. There's a little bit of dew and it's clogging up my paper, so I'm taking a break on that at the moment. The AC kit that I got looks like it does maintain the functionality of the front vent. So I'll have to get inside, pull that apart, make sure I've got all the bushings and everything to put that back together again. The wiper mechanism, I've got the new motor for it, the 12-volt motor, but the wiper mechanism itself will stay the same. So getting there. It is Wednesday morning right now. I do plan on trailering this out to a cruise that we have with the car club I belong to. Just get some opinions and show off where I'm at with it so far. The other thing I've been working on, I'll have to get a video a little bit later when I've got another set of hands, is the reverse tilt hood. Let me see if I can get a little bit of operation on that. So I've got a little bit to do to finish it. I've got some adjusting to do with it, and I've still got the actual seat rails to put in. I'll show what I'm talking about in a moment, but we'll do the basic hood operation. That is up. That'll be what it looks like when everything's set and completed. There is a prop rod that I do not have installed yet. Let's see if I can get something for the meantime. There we go, that actually works. All right. So these guys here are the tension and alignment rods. They're bolted at one end of the hood. The rod itself is bolted to the bracket is welded in. So we come and take a look. You can kind of see what's left of the old weld where it was welded in. Let me get my fat hand out of the way. And then right now I've just got the bracket bolted in with one, and I'll probably weld the new bracket in. We'll see. It's nice to be able to take off if you need to. I don't imagine there's ever be a reason it'll need to be done. But you've got that rod there, where'd I go? That rod there that bolts into the main cross, comes down, again bolts there. And you've got the bracket, and then you've got your pivot arm. So the pivot arm bolts, these were existing holes. Once I get everything lined up and centered, then we'll drill a hole, bolts here on either side. And then that's just this piece with a socket. That piece pivots, which allows the hood, it comes down, fits in, and then sinks down. So there's no actual physical latch removal. And then taking a look at, see which one it was, I believe it's this one here. So this piece will go into that hole there. This piece will go right here and mount. I've got to trim that edge a little bit, but that will go here. And these particular wheels, when it comes down, will slide into that, and that's how it locks into place. And then for any adjustments that you need, that's going to be done with these here. So when I close it, basically what I'll do is I'll climb up underneath, really nice without the engine in here, have somebody prop the hood where it needs to be, and then I can get underneath and actually lock down the hardware. But yeah, that's going to be the reverse flip hood, which is really common in these, to the point obviously where they have a pretty substantial kit for them. A lot easier to do with more than one person. The hardest part so far was getting the old brackets cut out for the new ones to go in. You have to trim this channel here to make room for it, making sure you're centered left to right so when you bolt it up. And then with this piece being factory original from 1953, so we're talking 70 years old now, to this piece being a new reproduced part, not all the holes are lining up, so I've got to do a little bit of work in there to get the hardware to line up quite where I want it. And then again, I'll be able to bolt all that down. But that is the reverse tilt hood kit, and then we'll show the closing operation. Oh, real quick while we're here, I've got to figure out how to make it work. But this piece here is a hood prop. You're supposed to be able to bolt it down to an existing hole, probably that one, and then find a way to actually secure it up here. Not sure how that will happen, but I'll do some fiddling with that. There's some videos online that will show a little bit more into it. May not be bad to put a hydraulic rod on that. I'm just not sure how that would work. But. All right, then coming back to the closing. Pivot down, those rollers will fit into the channel, and then roll the hood forward. Without those channels there, obviously I can't get it as smooth as I want it to be, but we can work on the alignment and the fitment. And we're going to be looking at essentially where this piece lines up and the gap for the fenders. I just have to finish getting the fenders fit and coming down here, just making sure this edge is where I want it to be. So that's some of the work I've been getting done lately. Again, the goal this week is to get the bodywork finished and get it into paint. overlap here. Should almost cut some of this out. Trim it down just a touch. Now that I've got the roll pan and that fuel filler welded, that was my buddy Dave that helped me out there. I'm gonna get some grinding down, get that level, throw a skim coat on that. I've got a little bit of work to do along the roof edge and just a couple other things to touch up. But by the end of the day, this thing should be ready for paint. So I'm still waiting for my supplier to actually let me know it's ready to go. My painter said we're doing about 6 quarts of color. I've got to get a final seal on this thing. We'll get the color on it, let it flash cure, and then get some clear on it. And then we'll bring it back here. And once I get the mechanical set in, then we should be able to buff it and polish it. So we're really getting down to the wire. And just everybody's schedules are backed up and they're fitting me in where they can. I definitely appreciate that. A couple of issues with some of my original helpers, subcontractors was the word I was looking for. So kind of a scramble to make everything work. But we're getting there. Again, the customer's been super gracious on giving me some extended timeline to get this thing done. And I want to make sure that it's the truck that he's wanting. So spend a little extra time here and there while I have time to burn. Hopefully I get this thing what he's after. But not going to do it by itself, so time to get sanding. All right, they gave about 80% of the truck a real good once over. I've got a couple of spots I need to add some more filler to, but I'm going to go step a little better air conditioning, take a break, and then we'll get back on round like 8 of the block sanding. Every step we're almost there, but every step you also uncover a few more things to fix. When you're building a vehicle that you care about presentation, like a rat rod or just a regular builder, definitely coming in to popularity lately, you're not as concerned about it. But if you're building something that you want to have a good quality paint job on, paint is the easy part, and I've probably said this before. Painting is the easy part. There's a skill and there's a technique to it. But what makes a paint job work or not work is all the prep that goes behind it. So when you go out and you get quotes for paint jobs, very, very little of it is the actual process of painting. Most of it is going to be all this prep work to make the paint look good once it's laid down. But it's a lot of man hours. So any of it that you can do yourself will definitely save you some money, but you're gonna work for it. You're gonna earn that discount. But a couple more rounds of this. Hopefully, like I said, by the end of today, we'll be ready to get it over to the paint shop. All right, a little bit of rest. Still got some drying off to do. Gonna blow off the truck and start over and get all the dust off, give it a wipe down, check and see where I'm at, where I need to focus a little more attention at, and hit for the next round. So I would normally take this by running my AC compressor, or not AC, running my air compressor with a blowgun and kind of getting all the dust and everything out. My compressor is in the shop across the way, and it doesn't quite stretch. The air hose doesn't quite stretch all the way over here, and I'm running window unit air conditioner to keep it a little bit survivable in here. So I can't run the regular compressor because that'll pop all my circuits. So adapt and overcome. And with that, we're going to go ahead and close out the season. As I said at the beginning, most of the season was going to be this one build. In order to keep the videos fairly short, it is going to bleed over into another season. This last one was a little bit longer than I'd been having. I know I'd gotten some feedback saying right around that half-hour range is where most people were comfortable seeing these videos at. This one pushed that hour mark just because I want to kind of close up the chapter that I was at. And then worked in some of the Mustang and the Power Tour stuff as well. As far as regular releases, I know I missed last week. I do apologize for that one. There are going to be some other videos of some stuff that I'm going to try and get done, before the end of this particular season yet. It's still pretty early in the summer season up here in Wisconsin, so we've got a lot of car stuff going on. So if I have anything worth showing, I will have separate videos for that. Otherwise, as I close out every video and closing out the season at this point, if you like what I'm doing, give a like, give a subscribe if you haven't. Any questions, any comments about what you saw, what you want to see, either maybe events or trips that you're interested in that you're not able to go on, or vehicles to work on. I will have kind of a preview for Season 6 coming up with some of the projects that I'm going to hopefully be getting to. Excuse me. And then, like I said, if there's anything, any type of job, if you see a car that I'm working on and, well, what about this and that kind of car? Or if you're wanting to see something, a car that you haven't seen me work on before, you leave a comment down there. I'll see what I can come up with. I did have an interesting incident come up that I'll get into for next season. I had an issue or a situation with a car that I have never had before. I've never done it before. Even though I've wanted to, this one worked out a little bit differently. I have never bought back a car I've sold before. There's a couple of them I've sold that I've wanted back and just hasn't worked out. This was not an intentional, like, ooh, I got to have that back. It's just a situational thing where it's back in the fleet for a completely oddball reason. But we'll get into that next season. Sorry, it has been a long week. Anyway, we are going to be throwing this one out. I am going to do my 4th of July burnout, so you'll see that one coming up for the holiday. And again, I've got a couple small things that I'll probably share with everybody as I get further in the summer season up here. And then, again, we'll get into season 6 when it gets here. As always, I do appreciate everybody that watches these, everybody that supports what I'm doing, those that do get a chance to leave a comment, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on Facebook, whether it be on Instagram, whether it be in person, for those that know me, individually. I do appreciate, all the people that are watching. So it lets me know that there's at least somebody that's got interest in what I'm doing, and I'll keep them coming until you guys let me know to stop. So in the meantime, everybody be safe and be kind to one another. We'll catch you on the next one. So at that point, I thought I was actually pretty close in the body work. I did a little bit of work between there and getting it over to the actual body shop, getting some of the air conditioning pre-work set up while I was waiting. At this point, between now and when I got it in the body shop, I did have to wait for him to get an opening to come back up. And then I found out that there was a lot more going on for bodywork that needed to be done that I wasn't aware of. So it really pushed that out. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and close this particular episode and close this particular season. We're finishing up season 5 now with getting it close to paint. So we'll start out the next season or the next series of videos on this in the body shop, getting the paint secured up, or excuse me, getting all the primer and all the pre-work secured up, and then getting the paint done, and then kind of go from the rest of my assembly as far as I was able to on there. And then we'll kind of take a look at some of the pitfalls, some of the issues that I had, and kind of let you know where it passed from my hands back to the customers to finish up.